It's a really tender topic today, working with our younger self. I've been doing this work for many years. I'm sure many of you have as well. I feel that it's at the root of healing. I work so much with the nervous system, and a lot of that is about, do we feel safe? And if we don't feel safe in the moment, then why is that? And it's usually because of our nervous system signals from the past, from when we were a child often. It's good to revisit this once in a while, I find. So many different elements in our relationships with each other. The work that Diane Poole Heller does, and also the interview that I did with her a few years ago. I thought we could play a clip from that, and then we're going to go into some inquiry around that, working with what she says in the clip.
What really needs to happen with what I tend to call encapsulated child or inner child, same thing. Some people call it ego state work, doesn't matter what label you put on it. But the way I work with it is, first of all, to have a person see if they can access, if they can go back from the adult self to see the younger self, and in one trauma at a time. So there might be something that happened at 5 and you don't want to get them all on board at the same time. You want to be working one event. And sometimes, like this morning, I worked with someone, it was from a whole span of years. So sometimes I'll be saying, well, from 3 to 10 when this happened, or from 5 to 17, or whatever it is. But you're just seeing if they can connect to that inner state, that traumatized state usually, and see what that age is holding, because it gets stopped in time, and then see if you can start building a relationship between the mature adult self and the child self. So there's a compassionate, hopefully supportive relationship eventually. And then also really be seeing what that child needed or what emotions needed to be felt that nobody was there for. And the inner child was usually alone or wasn't well supported when the trauma happened, because that's why it gets stuck, right? If you have a lot of support, sometimes you have a terrible trauma, but you have such great support, it doesn't end up being stuck in time. It ends up getting processed. But so often what happens, especially with sexual abuse or things that have kind of a taboo around them to talk about, get really stuck. And so you were trying to start a dialogue, but sometimes I ask questions like, well, what is that little boy or that little girl feeling? What is that 8-year-old wanting to let you know? That must have been horrible. What you told me what happened is really, really scary and was so unfair. What are some of the things that they might want? Now, sometimes I pretty much can tell what somebody would need, like they were glaringly lacking support. So I'll immediately say, well, I just wonder if any time in your life, and it can be today or even a movie you saw or a book you read, have you had experience with someone that was really a competent protector, somebody that knew how to have someone's back and would really step up? They wouldn't just have good intentions, but they would take action, the appropriate action. And I import that person. Now, sometimes it's the person's adult self, like they would be that person. Sometimes it's me as the therapist. And so often it's like a mentor they had in college or somebody they respect. And they bring that person in. And I said, now, what would you see this competent protector do or say for you at that age? And then they get to see somebody actually doing the right thing, but they're creating how that happens. I might menu a few things, like, would they get you out of there? Would they duke it out with the perpetrator? Would they say stop and you're not ever going to touch this kid again? What would they do? So sometimes I menu it and then the person goes, no, they wouldn't do that. They would do this, which is great. I'm trying to get to what they need the person to do. And then we kind of play that out and like, what's it feel? What happens in your body? And very often there's an emotional reaction. And there's just more communication. It's so brave of these inner children to show up. And I try to help the adult self that sometimes is embarrassed by what happened or doesn't want to acknowledge it. I said, look how courageous this part of you is that's been struggling and trapped in this experience. And they're talking to you and they're showing you what feelings they need to have support to feel. And they're feeling them and you're allowing it. And I'm just trying to kind of navigate and negotiate a good relationship, ultimately intrapsychically, because like IFS says, internal family systems, the inner child has the adult self 24/7. They have the therapist maybe 1 hour a week or 1 hour every 2 weeks. So you want to make sure you're building that intrapsychic resource, as well as I believe that the external resources can be helpful too. So I do everything. I bring it all in. If we look to the wisdom of memory reconsolidation, is when you access with a threatening, wounding experience, that memory comes up. It's been encoded all over the brain. It comes up, and you're inserting all these positive experiences. And I always say to clients, I know this didn't happen in reality when you were a kid. You didn't have this support, but just see what difference it makes. But when you bring that memory back in, it will be uh, contaminated in a good way with the
Yeah.
corrective experiences, the experience of a competent protector, the experience of being able to have a voice and say what happened, the experience of being able to feel your feelings and being supported because the therapist is there. They're not alone this time. That makes a huge difference. And then the brain over time, and sometimes immediately, will always choose the more adaptive response. We're wired for that. So
Mhm.
you're using again the physiology we know and understand to support the healing process. And it makes it so much more efficient.
Wow. I am going to unpack a little bit of that for us, and then we're going to go into the inquiry. One of the first things that we want to pay attention with is that we all have this younger self who didn't have as much agency as we do now, was possibly scared, hurt, shamed, not protected. That inner part of us can be frozen at that age. And then we can also heal as our adult self, we can make a connection. Our healing begins and is really supported by connection. So maybe as a child, we didn't have anybody that listened to us. And now we listen to ourselves. Our adult self can be here. And we can also bring in other resources, like she said. The neuroplasticity, our brain rewires. And the original memory becomes infused with the corrective experience of safety, the voice, the protection, being listened to, being cared for, being protected. And that is what enables that stuck energy of trauma to begin to move, and then we can experience freedom. Those are very simple principles of how trauma gets stored at an age and what it is that we can do now to make a difference. So, meeting the younger self, let's do this as a practice. Close your eyes if you like, and if it's too intense to close your eyes, keep them open. As you're doing this isn't therapy, this is a somatic inquiry. And so you probably want to not work with a 10 out of 10 experience. Try and pick something that's neutral or something a little bit activating, but where you can still remain present here. So you can always open your eyes, you can hold your own hands, you can look around. Just remind ourselves that we're doing this somatic inquiry and we're going to stay present here in this moment as we're doing this. Bring to mind an image of yourself at an age when you felt small, frightened, unsupported. Bring a specific incident, or maybe there's an image of yourself at that age. Maybe what grade were you at in school? Bring some details. What does your hair look like? How big are you? Are you kind of physical and athletic? Are you more of a bookworm? Just kind of bring some details of that age into your mind. How are you sitting? How do you move around? And what emotions might you have been feeling? So there are many experiences that we've all had. We've all experienced feeling left out. We've all experienced not getting our own way. We've all experienced a lot of ways that we've felt left out or frightened or unsupported. As our adult self, imagine that you're gently approaching your younger self. And what words of reassurance might you say? If it's easier, you might think of another child. Maybe you have a child in your life, or you could imagine yourself at that, but maybe it's somebody else if it's too difficult for yourself. But what would any child in that situation want to hear? What would be reassuring to them? And as the younger self, how does that feel to have an adult acknowledge that was unfair what happened to you? Or, oh, that must have been so painful. I can see that was a very difficult situation for you to be in. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Take a moment here, just bringing to mind that younger self and what might be your experience. How does it feel if somebody finally acknowledges, yeah, that was a tough situation? I can see why you'd be scared. I would have been too. Notice how it's affecting your body. Make sure that you're continuing to breathe. Very common that we hold our breath. So just keep a bit of an eye on your breath. And maybe place your hand on your heart. Depending on the situation, you might hug the child or hold their hands. Offer them some comfort. And now imagine for that child and see if you could stay with an example. And if it feels like it's too much, back away, pick a different one. What would have made the difference for you when you were that child, when you were that age? Would it have been maybe a parent wasn't available to you and didn't notice? A grandparent, a teacher, a friend's parent, character from a story or film? Imagine them arriving. So, who would have made a difference? Who would you have liked to have had there to be reassuring? And then imagine them arriving. So, you might see this in your mind's eye that you're in whatever space you're in, and here comes this person or these people. And how do they show their support? Let yourself imagine that. Diane Poole Heller said it might be that they say, "No, you're not going to touch this child again." Or it might be something more like, "I'm going to take you out of this situation. I'm just going to sit here with you and listen and let you know that you're not alone." So, how might they show that protection, that support? Imagine this support here with you, and you can bring in more if you like. Let's take our time with this. Breathe, relax your body. If you want to get up and move around, if you're feeling kind of antsy, that's fine. This could be bringing up difficult memories, and you might not want to be still in your body. When we didn't have the support that we needed, especially if it was someone in your home, parents or older siblings or something like that, that was causing the harm, then what we're doing right now is we're imagining who might have come in to support us. Not that they did, because they didn't, but who could we bring in if we could redo this? One of the things she's talking about is our memory. When it comes up, it becomes infused with the corrective experience, with feeling protected. If you don't have anyone that did protect you at the time and you could have a redo, who would you bring in? And it might be the Dalai Lama. It might be some figure that you know of. It might be a story character that you always admired and who would be fierce. Anne of Green Gables. And let yourself know, let your younger self feel and know that you're not alone. One of the things that they might say to you, "Hey, I'm here now. You're not alone anymore. You're a child. You can't figure this out on your own. You did the best you could, and you're not alone now." And let yourself breathe and really let that soak in. Let yourself visualize this corrective experience. It's safe for you to tell me what's going on. Nobody's going to hurt you now. It's safe for you to tell me. I will protect you. You can count on me to be here. Take a deep breath if that feels possible. Let yourself really settle in. This momentary 2 or 3 minutes of feeling, here I have protectors this time. I'm not alone. There's somebody here who's going to protect me. Let your body relax, and maybe we could come out of fight or flight. We have our protector here this time. We don't have to manage this on our own. Take some deeper breaths. Let our shoulders soften. And what does that child, what does your younger self want your adult self to know? Sometimes when I've been working with my younger self, there's kind of a mistrust there, especially at the beginning. It's like, well, you were never here before. How can I trust that you're going to stick around this time? What if I tell you something and then it's too much and then you just never come back into connection with me? So it might take time to build trust, just like it does with everybody, every relationship. We need to build trust through our reliability, our connection, our kindness. And you could talk to them, even if they haven't said that out loud. We could probably assume that there's some hesitation there. Assure them that you want to continue to be here. I love you. I want to get to know you more. Whatever you might do or say to reassure them that you're here for them. We used to have to do this on our own, and now we're not alone anymore. You might picture a symbol, a gesture, a phrase. What could serve as a reminder of this connection? As you're going through in your adult life now, maybe it's a picture of yourself at a younger child, or maybe it's a picture of your protector, or maybe you're going to art something. Maybe it's holding your own hand. It's helpful to have a visual reminder. For many years, I had pictures of myself at younger ages that I would see, and I started to really form a connection with my younger self, especially my teenage self. Some of those ideas that we formed during that time, we see more clearly that wasn't actually accurate. I was just a child trying to make it through a difficult situation. And now I have these resources. I have myself as a resource. Let's take a few moments here now to just reflect on our experience. What does it feel like in your body right now, now that you've reached out for connection with your younger self? It would be very likely that you feel a little stirred up, perhaps, maybe a bit of emotion. Your heart could be full. What does it feel like in your body? What are the sensations? And are you feeling inspired to continue with this connection? Even if we've done a lot of younger self or inner child work, we might still want to just check in, just so that they know we haven't forgotten. So, if you're inspired to do some kind of ongoing work, it might be once a month to journal, or maybe take your younger self out for an ice cream once in a while, or whatever that might be for you. What might that look like if you're feeling inspired to continue this connection? How might you do that? What could you commit to? And then sense into the strength that you gained just through this simple practice, from resourcing through our adult self and the new resources as well. What does that feel like in your body to know I'm not alone, actually? My adult self can be there for my younger self. I could imagine a warm, loving grandparent, for instance, or a fierce friend. I had a friend who said someone came into their home and spoke back to her dad, and she was so shocked because nobody in their family did. It was a pivotal experience in her life, kind of broke her out of the freeze of, I can't do anything. When we recreate this memory, and this time we're not in freeze, this time we have protection, we can rewrite that experience, let our brain, our whole nervous system experience that from a different level of protection and safety. But this is such a simple practice. First of all, actually, we get regulated and into our body in this moment. We do a bit of breathing and notice that this is what we're doing. Then we think of an age and an experience that was scary or where we were frightened. And then we come into connection. We feel that in our body. This practice makes a difference. And that's a relationship that we can cultivate over time to keep coming forward and bringing forward that connection. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for coming and doing this practice together. And we'll return to this. I have 2 practices on Insight Timer. One's about the child nervous system, one's about soothing your younger self. So you could look those up as well if you want to have some other guided practice.